G'day friends, welcome to a very, very special video, and I'm sure you're excited for it. You know what this means, right?
I can't wait.
Did you see the footage I put in there?
Oh, from the
It's from my phone.
It's from our Insta story.
Insta story.
Hi,
Look
everybody,
at
it's
that
me.
stage. Okay, so I'm using that stage, that set design, which is absolutely phenomenal.
It's like, I mean, I walked in and was gagged instantly.
Wig snatched to the heavens, blew off to the rafters.
Not yet.
Wig location unknown.
Oh, that soon? My wig was snatched. No, my
as soon
wig,
as I walked in.
No, my wig wasn't snatched that early.
Oh, mine was gone.
No.
I didn't even enter the theater with my wig. Okay, so I showed you that because that's the inspiration we're doing. I'm going to do a journal with me today, based on our, well, you know, inspired by the trip that we took to Boston last week to see the Moulin Rouge musical.
Yes, Moulin Rouge the musical.
Oh, Moulin Rouge Broadway.
Yes.
We'll leave a link to the Instagram down below if you're curious to see any more photos and get some more info. If you're in Boston and you have not seen this,
and you are creative, which most of you are,
I don't even think you need to. I think anyone would enjoy it.
go see it. Go see this. It closes August 19th. So just a couple more weeks.
Yeah.
Their official opening is...
I think tickets are a little expensive, but it was
so worth it. It's 100% worth it. It's unbelievable.
We're going to talk all about it in a second.
So, of course, like, if you guys know me, you know that I love Baz Luhrmann
Yeah.
very much. We have spoken so much about that. There have been so many videos about Baz and my love for him, and etc., etc., etc.
Yeah.
And then everybody, or maybe most people, some people know that I did a photo shoot inspired by, or a Baz Luhrmann inspired photo shoot utilizing his film. So I did one, Romeo and Juliet, and then I also more recently did one of Moulin Rouge. So I'm already obsessed.
Yeah.
Which I think can lead to a potential lethal combination, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because it definitely had, you know, I was a little worried walking into it thinking, like, what if it's not everything that I think it's going to be?
Well, here's the other issue, too. Not only are you Baz Luhrmann obsessed, you have a master's in musical theatre.
Yeah.
So you're going into a world where you know so much of what's happening and what's at stake and the process and how, you know, let's just be honest, it is so easy for something to come apart in a production like a musical because there are so many different moving parts. You've got sets, costumes, choreography, direction, acting, singing, like the music. There's so many moving parts to it, and you know all about that. And just to know that it was based off of your favorite film, how did you go into even processing that in your head? Because first we weren't going to go. We couldn't actually find a time to do it.
Right, because our schedules couldn't line up.
We couldn't line up. We really tried hard to make a time work, and then one kind of opened up, but it was very, very expensive. And at this point, I was also considering that we should go back to Japan and try and recreate all of that fun that we had last year. You know, part holiday, part work.
Right.
So I was kind of shelving this for maybe when it made its Broadway debut.
Yeah.
Even then I was like, well, we're still flying East Coast at that point and it's going to be expensive too. And I mean, it's a new musical. It's out of town tryout.
Yeah. So the idea with how sometimes how New York will, or how the idea of Broadway will work is that, you know, you get a musical, a show, an idea. So in this case, Moulin Rouge, and you have producers who are typically a team of producers, but sometimes if it's based off of a film, then you have the studio, which will help back it up. And I believe that Fox helped play part producer in this production, and they will say if it is a big name and they believe that the stakes are high, they will typically do a full out-of-town tryout to see how audiences react to it, to see if there are any changes that need to happen, because there's so much riding on it that they don't want to risk it.
Right.
They would rather spend the money to make a full out-of-town, you know, production happen, and then make adjustments later on, just so for like you know, peace of mind and security to know that how successful it would be.
Right. Well, I mean, and also in some cases it is kind of, you know, not easy, but it is easier to figure all of that stuff out outside of New York than it is to try and
definitely
put yourself right next door to, you know, theaters that have had shows running for years.
Well, and Boston is already super close to New York, so that's already a little, like, you know, you're a little close to New York, because the idea is that you want to do the show where there's no, like, as they call them, New York vultures. So you don't want the reviewer for the New York Times to, like, come over and give an opinion.
The preliminary stage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
which they will. People will still turn up to previews.
There's still reviews happening, you know, on their opening night, I think is August 3rd. So, you know, That's their official opening. Okay. Up until this point, what they're doing is they're still in what they call 10 out of 12s. So they're rehearsing during the day, making changes to the show, opening the show, or and then they perform the show at night, and that's what they do for 6 days out of the week. Yeah. They're still on an 8-show run. They do 8 shows a week, and in between those.
But nothing is set in stone at this point.
Nothing is set. And once they decide to open it for preview, like once they say, okay, this is the official opening date of the out-of-town tryout, then technically they freeze the show until, once it closes, and they go back and revisit it, and then they rehearse for New York. So it's a lot riding on this. If you know the musical Wicked was one of those musicals that did have an out-of-town tryout.
In San
Francisco, and I got to go see that because my parents live up in the Bay Area, and this is right before this is 2001 no 2003ish I think 2003, and I remember going to see it, and I thought it was so great. And then years later when I saw it, it was interesting to see all the changes that they had made to it and they had to recast roles. They moved things around in the story. They adjusted songs. They wrote new songs. They took some out. It was a whole.
Sometimes it can. Sometimes if anyone's seen the show Smash, that details the TV show Smash. The TV show Smash, that details what this process is in length, and it is very true to how it all works out. It's fascinating to me because when you go to see a show, most of the time I don't think we ever really think that process. We think, oh wow, a lot of work's gone into this, but you don't realize that it might have been 17 years in talks to try and do it. It might have been a full year of just workshopping it with different casts, trying to see if different ideas would work. Then you get there, and things that you've never even thought about. Like, one of the big points of this musical that I heard a lot about before we went was that there was a lot of modern music in it. Now in the film, at that point, Baz Luhrmann had used a lot of modern music.
Up until in 2001, they had used tons of pop music.
Nirvana is in it. Like, that's not, you wouldn't think, old-time French Revolution and think of Nirvana.
Or like turn of the century, like musicals set in 1899, 1900 Paris.
You would never think that. So in keeping with that theme, I think a lot of people were open to the idea, but also it's a risk. And I think the interesting thing to think about, even in that, it's not as simple as saying like, oh, we're just going to put this song in there. You have to get rights to every song that's in a musical. And, some people might be upset if a song's not in there, but you have no idea why it might not be. Sometimes it's not a choice. Sometimes you can't get the rights for something. It's, the same thing that happens in any case, even in art. I can license my art. Sometimes I might not choose to do it to a certain company. For whatever reason I choose. I don't even have to have one.
Well, and I think sometimes, like, they will, so hold on, sorry, we're just going to turn off the AC because it's very, very, very loud. Well, sometimes they don't, what they don't end up doing is, like, they will license their music out to a film because they believe that there'll be a wider audience. You're hitting millions and millions and millions and millions of people instantly in a short amount of time. Versus sometimes for music theater, the numbers are much smaller, and either they are willing to release the rights to their music, but they want X amount of dollars. And at that point, the producers will be like, well, is it worth it? Can we do the same thing with a different song? We can, so let's move on. I mean, I will say in this production, though, they kept it pretty close.
Pretty close, yeah. And the addition of the newer music was actually some of my most favorite numbers in this show. There's a Bad Romance number that just moved me.
Well, okay, so let's go back to the idea of like Moulin Rouge. If you are a purist and if you love the film, for me,
which you are,
which I am, I love the film, and part of what made me nervous was knowing that the stakes were high. If this wasn't satisfactory for whatever reason, there is a very good chance that it probably wasn't going to go to New York, and that made me really, really sad. I also got very, very nervous, thinking like, how are they going to interpret the camera movement from the film? How are they going to do the set design? I know that costumes are going to be different, but when you're a purist and you love something so much, it's hard to look outside of that. So I had to force myself to go into it with a completely open mind.
Yeah, and it's not just the movie you love the direction, the Baz Luhrmann direction.
I love the actors.
Love Nicole Kidman and Ewan McGregor in those roles as Satine and Christian. Like, there's so much that you actually love about it in all of its parts. The music as well, like some of your favorite songs of life are in that movie. So the stakes were so high, and honestly, I'm so glad we got to go, but there was a lot of a time when we were just like, you know what, maybe not. And I'm sure in part you were thinking, well, okay, I can deal with that because there must have been a huge part of you that was so nervous.
There was, but then, you know, I'd heard so many friends, I'd seen, you know, friends of mine from LA who had, you know, happened to stop by Boston and checked it out, and their reviews were so honest and very excited. I thought, like, I will, even if I don't like it, I feel like I have to see it. I owe it to myself to see it because I'm that much of a fan.
Right. And see, I never wanted to see Wicked because I was such a Wizard of Oz fan for my whole life. I didn't want to ruin what I thought about the Wizard of Oz by having an alternative storyline. Now this is different because it is the storyline, but I mean, the stakes were so high for you. I would believe if you didn't want to go just because you didn't want anything tainted. Some people are like that. I was like that.
Yeah, but you know, But
then I got FOMO. I went too deep on Instagram one day and I was like, Steve, I think we just have to do this because, you know, this is just something we have to kind of do.
And we're both artists, we're creative, we love it, and I think we will appreciate it for what it is. And so we did.
Yeah.
And so we booked a flight out there and...
Red-eyed it,
and we walked in, and the set design, like you saw, is so unbelievable. Yeah. And I think what helps is because the theater, the Emerson Colonial Theater, naturally has that red velvet and that gold, like, brocade, like, gaudiness about it, so it definitely lends itself...
Oh, the whole theater is ornate.
Yeah, the venue lends itself to the set design. And it's like, it was unreal.
Yeah.
Just... like so spectacular.
Yeah, spectacular. So yeah, look, this video is part 1. I'm seeing that we're so close to the end anyway. Yeah. I'm dying at this spread because one of my favorite parts in the show was when the glitter, the tinsel and everything fell from the ceiling when Satine came down on the swing. Entrance. I was like, Steve, I'm gonna make a journal page. It's gonna be a pull down tab. Satine is going to emerge from this set. And the actual, the stuff that I used on that page was the from the confetti cannons they shot at the end of the show.
Yes.
And from the,
And I collected it.
Steve went on a rampage.
Because he walked out. So James just walked out at the end of the show. They shoot off all this confetti and he like walks out, and I was like, you're not taking any confetti? James loves glitter. So
okay, first of all, I was just very discreet in how I got it, and it was already in my program.
I just grabbed
Steve was on an Easter egg hunt, running around the theater trying to grab, like, streamers, and... I mean, he would have taken a set piece for me to put in my journal if he could.
And you know what's crazy is that, like, later on, when we got back to the hotel and, like, you know, changed my clothes for bed, there's, like, glitter in my pants.
Yeah, no,
and there's glitter in my shoes.
Everywhere. I don't want to get graphic, but, like, I went to shower and I took off my clothes and there was another confetti cannon that happened at that point.
So... like,
which is the kind of confetti cannon that I'm interested in.
It was like, I mean, I was so here for all that glitter. It was just this massive explosion.
Yeah, there is a budget for Mylar in this production.
There has to be, because it's so good. It is so unbelievable. Like, it was so great.
Yeah. So what I wanted to say is that I can see that this video is wrapping up. We will actually continue to talk through this.
Yeah.
We'll chop it off at the end, and I'll come back with a part 2 where we'll discuss the rest of it, because we haven't even scratched the surface. I want to ask you so many more questions, which, you know, we'll start now. Yeah. But look out for part 2 where we wrap this whole thing up. I'm assuming it'll be a little bit longer, because you just loved this, right?
I could talk about this. I've been thinking about it every single day. And no joke, I really want to go back right now before October 18th to see it.
I know you do.
I would literally just red-eye, see the show, and red-eye the following, and red-eye back.
Yeah. We actually saw it twice. I don't know if we mentioned that. We saw it 2 consecutive nights. One from the house, very close on house left, and then we went up to the mezzanine.
Front row of the mezzanine.
And saw it there. So completely different view. From up there, I could see the set changes and was like, wow, even those are choreographed specifically.
Like, it's such a spectacle, and I will say, I mean, it is, as a creative, it was so beautiful and so inspiring, and there's something to look at always.
Yeah. So we'll leave you here with that. Catch us for part 2.
Yeah.
When we really go in.
I love it.
Enchanté.